And welcome back to Capital Tonight. So over the past decade or so, business interests have complained vociferously about the overtaxed, overregulated, and generally, as they perceive it, anti-business atmosphere created by New York's elected officials. And each year, they have railed against the executive budget, that proposed spending and tax hikes, warning that the state's economy would never improve if this pattern continued. But this year, things are completely different. My next guests are bordering on downright giddy after seeing Governor Cuomo's budget proposal. Joining us from Rochester is Unshackle Upstate Executive Director Brian Sampson, and then here in Albany with me is National Federation of Independent Business State Director Mike Elmendorf. Thank you very much for your time, both of you. It's good to see you both.
Thank you, Les. Good to be back.
Thanks for having us.
So, downright giddy, is that not an appropriate way to describe you, Mike? Is that how you feel?
Well, it is certainly a welcome change from where we've been the last few years. We've been saying for, I think, many months now that Andrew Cuomo's been saying all the right things. In fact, really sounds like he's sort of been giving the stump speech that Brian and I have been using as we've traveled over the state the last few years. But now we're seeing very clearly that the governor is not only saying the right things, he's doing the right things.
Brian?
Yeah, I would agree with what Mike said, and I think what was nice to hear yesterday is Governor Cuomo say, you know, we're not going to cut our way out of this issue. We're going to have to grow our way out of it. And so his commitment to private sector job growth was fantastic to hear. And I think it is appropriate to say we're giddy, but of course he's one piece of a three-piece puzzle. So we just need to make sure that what he's put forward that seems right needs to continue to be advanced for both houses.
Now, see, that's really where the rub is here, right? I mean, you saw, both of you, I'm sure, a little bit of the response. Brian, you must have heard what Dean Skelos, the Senate Majority Leader, had to say, and Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver. Both of them, I thought, were fairly circumspect. Of course, the devil's in the details. The budget is this massive amount of paper, so it's difficult to go through it. Were you worried at all about what they had to say, Brian?
Well, I think you always have to take things very cautiously, and we understand that there are different constituencies that both of those two are responsible for, but the simple fact of the matter is the budget that's been put forth seems to be something that's fair and equitable for all New Yorkers, regardless of region, regardless of profession, regardless of your income. So we've said all along, all of us are going to have to share in this pain. What's nice for us is that this year we didn't have to come out right away and say we're spending too much and we're taxing too much. So it's a good plan. It's a sound plan. The devil is in the details. And again, if we can work with both houses to advance a sound fiscal plan that starts to take care of the structural issues that face New York, we're all going to be much better off.
You know, Mike, you worked for Governor Pataki, and you had Governor Cuomo come out with this sort of really strong statement. Now he's said it 3 times. He said it the day before the budget in an op-ed. He said it the day of the budget address. He compared it to Enron, Albany's version of Enron. That's what he compared the budget process to. And then today he's got this new video out that speaks to New Yorkers. It really just reiterates the same message and says he won't be intimidated by lobbyists and special interests. Were you surprised? I mean, this isn't a big secret that there have been built-in, increases year to year in the budget process.
No, I wasn't surprised by it, but I think he's right. I think basically what the governor is doing is making an argument for zero baseline budgeting. I mean, the operational assumption we've had here year after year is that if you spend X this year, next year you're going to spend X plus Y.
Right.
And we just can't afford that anymore. That's not what families do. That's not what small business owners do. They look at their priorities, they look at their resources, they look at the reality that they're in, and they make decisions on an annual basis.
But is that actually true? I mean, when I budget, I know that there are certain X's that I'm going to have to spend. And if last year I spent X on my mortgage and my taxes, I'm assuming that it's going to be X plus Y because the taxes are going to go up.
Unless, of course, your income goes down, and then you need to make decisions to spend less money, and that's the situation that the state's been in. The governor made it very clear yesterday. State spending has been far outpacing the growth in revenue. So we've been spending more than we've been taking in additional revenue. We've been spending more, increasing our spending more than people's income has been increasing, and we've been increasing our spending significantly more than inflation. It's obviously not sustainable. I mean, where did the state think this money was going to come from?
Well, okay. Well, in some cases it came from the federal government. Brian?
Well, what I was going to say is this, it goes to what we've been saying for the last couple of years, and that is that what we have seen is not spending cuts. What we've seen is a control of growth in the state budgets. And that's not how our families have operated. It's not how our business have operated. When we do spending cuts, we go backwards. We don't go slightly forward plus a little bit. This is about spending cuts. It's good to see the governor come out with a budget that literally spends less than we're scheduled to spend this year.
Okay.
And that's what a spending cut is all about.
True. Okay. And that's something that I think that most New Yorkers can understand. The ox of two particularly interesting oxen got gored here. It was education and healthcare. And we had two individuals on yesterday, Tim Creamer from the School Boards Association and then Dan Sisto from Haney's. And they said they didn't think that these cuts were sustainable. Healthcare in particular, we're really hearing a lot from. I think education really was expecting what they got, more or less. Healthcare, Dan Sisto was very upset. And I think that we've got a soundbite of something that he said last night that I thought was very interesting. I'd like to play it for you.
To say that we're going to, I know there's a committee to protect New York. To me, it's the committee to protect New York's wealthy. To put up money to say we're going to defend the governor who defends us from paying the surcharge that we have now on our taxes, but we're going to cut $15 billion here and take money out of education. Sick children can't learn, but we need healthy schools.
Okay, so what he's doing here actually is really a shot across your bows collectively, because he's talking about business, and Mike, he's talking about the Committee to Save New York, and they are, of course, they've raised $10 million. It's real estate, it's business, it's the Business Council. The head of the Business Council is now the Economic Development appointee by the governor. I mean, he's making a pitch for the millionaire's tax. What's the response to that?
Well, you talk about sustainable. What we've been doing in terms of education and healthcare spending is not only not sustainable, if you look at the condition that we're in, but the governor yesterday illustrated very clearly, it's also not tied to any particular outcome. If you're spending more on education and healthcare than everybody else just about in the country, you might feel a little better about that if your results in those areas were better. But it's not. So the notion that just because we spend less means that our kids aren't going to be as educated as well in public schools, or that our healthcare system is going to fail people who need it, I think is just wrong. We cannot afford to keep doing what we've been doing. And to listen to him talk about the Committee to Save the Wealthy, the homeowners that are being forced out of their homes in New York because they can't afford the property taxes or the tax burden beyond the property tax burden, the business owners that are being forced to not get paid or let employees go or close their doors. These aren't wealthy people. These are people who can't afford to be here anymore. And that old class warfare bit, I think, is getting a little bit tired.
Well, I think that generally, and Brian, if you want to jump in here, I mean, I think generally I agree with you that people who are getting forced out of their homes are not wealthy. But if we're talking about shared pain, where's the pain that wealthy people are going to be feeling if, in fact, the millionaire's tax sunsets at the end of this year, as it is on schedule to do? Hold on, Brian.
Right, okay.
Here's
the thing. No, I hear what you're saying, and everyone can make an argument. But the simple fact of the matter is, according to the Division of Budget, 66% of state-controlled spending is in education, labor, and Medicaid. Therefore, if you're going to cut spending, you have no choice but to focus in on those three areas. And as Mike alluded to, and we heard from the governor yesterday, we're not getting the results in those areas that we want to see to make us feel good about spending what we spend. Now, this argument is always going to come up about people should pay more and the wealthy should pay more, and I'm not here to defend anybody that's making a good living. But the simple fact of the matter is that personal income tax that was passed 2 years ago also included a whole host of small businesses in the state of New York that file their business taxes through the personal income tax system. So what we in effect did was we took the job creation engine in the state of New York and we taxed them at a higher rate. That needs to go away because, as the governor said, we have to grow our way out of this, and if we have more people making an income, we have more people paying taxes, that's more money going back into our communities, more people buying houses. It's the way we have to fix this. We can't keep doing what we're doing. It's just insanity.
Yeah, Brian's exactly right. And, I get a little tired of hearing about the millionaire's tax. It sounds good, except it's totally bogus. It's a tax increase that started at $200,000 for an individual filer, $250,000 for a married couple filing jointly. As Brian said, most small businesses pay their business tax through the owner's personal income tax.
Okay,
so I think we need to.
Can you decouple that? I mean, is it possible to decouple that? That you would cut small businesses out of that, rewrite the millionaire's tax, and then say, really, it is for millionaires.
Right.
That millionaires, people who really honestly make, because you're hearing that same message from Barack Obama in the State of the Union.
Well, the short answer seems to be in New York, no. We met with the tax department to try to figure out a way to do that. We had legislators who wanted to try to do that, and it seems that it's not something that at least easily or practically can be done. And as Brian points out, these are the only people really in the economy right now that are creating new jobs, are small business owners that would probably end up in those tax brackets. I don't think, though, and I think Governor Cuomo was right when he says this, we can't survive as a state if we continue to be the worst tax state in the country. So I don't think anybody needs to be paying higher taxes. The problem here is not that we don't have enough revenue or that taxes have been artificially low. The problem is that we have been spending money that we simply don't have. And these bills have come due, and now it's time to cut, not tax more.
Brian?
Right. Well, here's the thing. We have effectively kicked the can down the road far enough that we've reached a dead end. We don't have any choices here. And when you look at the totality of what we're trying to look at, a property tax cap is passed, and that's a great thing because it's going to lower the cost for lots of people. You can't do a circuit breaker, again, because then you're going to, I mean, a circuit breaker is in essence a tax increase for some, a tax decrease for other. It has nothing to do with property taxes. It has everything to do with income. Let's figure out a way where we can put more money in people's pockets so they can reinvest it in their communities. I think that's what we're all for. And if that means that, you know, we have to take some short-term pain to get there, then let's do that. But let's not continue to be disillusioned that everything is okay. It's not okay. We've reached the end. It's time to fix things.
All right. Just in closing, though, let me ask you this. I mean, for both of you, Mike, if you would start, the appointment of Ken Adams from the Business Council to head the Economic Development Corporation, which has not yet been confirmed by the Senate, but I would expect, seeing how the confirmations have gone quite quickly up until this point, only a few have been done, however, it's probably going to happen. The Senate's controlled by the Republicans, and right now they and Cuomo are getting along quite well. Do you think that sent a signal to the business community that he was, in fact, I mean, you know, it was criticized. There were some people who said it was a quid pro quo. The first endorsement of the Business Council went to Andrew Cuomo, period.
I think it was a very good appointment by the governor. I mean, Ken Adams has been a tireless advocate for the business community. He's been a friend and a partner to me, and I think Brian would agree to him as well. We've worked side by side on a lot of these issues. He gets it. He knows the challenges that are out there, and now somebody who's been in the trenches with us is going to be at the table with the governor and part of his leadership team. So I think it's a very good appointment. Quid pro quo, I mean, come on. It's not as if I don't think he's being enriched by leaving the Business Council to go into state service. When the governor asks you to serve, I've been in that position, you salute smartly and say yes, and that's what Kenneth has done, and I think he's going to do great there.
Brian, last word to you.
Yeah, absolutely. That appointment is an essential piece. It's a very good message to the business community. There are several things that we've seen that are very good, but what Kenneth brings to the table has an intimate knowledge of upstate, downstate. He's got relationships across the state with different chambers of commerce, different business leaders. He will be someone that will be able to take very complicated policy, boil it down to a point where New York can execute a plan to retain its jobs it already has, attract new business, fix our economy, grow our way out of this, as we've said several times today, and get us back to where we are, the Empire State that we all know and love, and it's the reason we're here.
Well, we're going to see actually what happens, what piece of the governor's budget stays intact in the end, because, of course, this is just getting started, and the deadline is April 1st. We've got 2 houses of the legislature to weigh in yet, and you guys, I'm sure, will weigh in also. Brian Sampson, I want to thank you very much. Mike Almendorf, thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Always a pleasure, Liz.